Hey guys, welcome to Starting Out Solitary. I'm your Friday sub-week host, Michelle, and this week we're talking about paganism in the workplace. So this week I'm sub-hosting during sub-week on Friday for Katey, since Katey subbed for me last week on Thursday, and we're talking about paganism, or your practice, and the workplace. And for me, it's been challenging over the last couple of years because I've been in the legal field for about 15, almost 16 years, and so I've always worked in an office. And where I work now, it's just me and two attorneys, so it's a really small office. I'm a paralegal, and I also manage the office. So I'm pretty much the only support staff besides the attorneys. My boss is pretty, chill. He's pretty laid back, and I tried to explain to him multiple times what my beliefs were, and he just, constantly likes to tease me and just call me atheist. So, he's like, "You're atheist, right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm pagan." "Atheist, same thing, right?" "Yeah, same thing." Whatever. Although I have explained to him before that I have, my beliefs are more of a pantheist in nature, and I had to explain that to him, and but he doesn't care either way, whether I'm pagan or atheist or Christian or Jewish. He doesn't care. But as far as prior places I have worked, until now I've worked at much larger firms where it's anywhere from 200 to 2,000 people. So my beliefs and being pagan weren't really, I didn't really show them off, so to speak. I've always had like a small little altar area on my desk, which people just think are decorations, because usually I keep it very, very casual, very, not formal, like more formal, like I have at home. And usually my altars on my desk are very small, they're very simple, decorative, and they represent the elements, and that's pretty much it. And it's just a place I can look at during the day to reflect and to kind of, recenter myself, get myself together, because usually I'm pretty stressed out when I need to take a break or take a moment to myself, and just, focus on that and focus on the bigger picture, instead of, stressing out about all these little things and all this stuff in the moment that, isn't going to matter, a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever. So I've always had a place of focus on my desk or my workspace. And like I said, most people just think they're decorative items on my desk. I've had very, very few people ask me about them. But when asked about my beliefs, because the last office I worked at before here, I only worked there for 3 or 4 months. It was absolutely terrible. I only worked there for 3 or 4 months, and that place was so strict. You couldn't have a drink on your desk. You couldn't have, and I wasn't in management. I'm used to being in management, and at that place I was in transition between jobs, and so I was just, for lack of a better term, another peon at a desk, and we couldn't even have drinks or food, or, we couldn't have anything, and we had very little space. We had enough room for our dual monitor set up, and our chair, and like a foot on each side of us, and that's it. And then there was another person, and another person. So, at that place I didn't have anything on my desk representing my, beliefs or, paganism in general. The place I worked at before then, I was at for about 3 years, and I was a paralegal manager there, so I had a lot more room and a lot more space, and I did have a small little altar area on my desk, and I never got asked about it. The only time I talked about it with another coworker was when they started asking me about my beliefs, because most people knew I wasn't Christian, most people knew I wasn't Jewish. They knew that, I was spiritual in some way, and I had a couple select employees that I was really cool with that, would ask me about what my beliefs were, and I would explain it to them. And one person in particular, I went ahead and told her, "Look, this is why I have this and this on my desk. It's a place for me to look and reflect, blah blah blah." Because if I remember correctly, she had like a wooden little cross statue on her desk, and to her that was what she used it for. Was, you know, when she was having a bad day or stressed out, she would look at that and focus on it and, you know, get herself together and just remember her faith. And that's pretty much the same thing I do with my altar, and I explained that to her, and she thought it was cool, and, you know, no big deal. And before that, the other office I worked at, years ago, I also had, like I said, same kind of little setup, just something to represent the elements. Most of it people just thought were decorative items, and I never really got asked about it. So, fortunately, I've never been harassed about my beliefs, bothered about them. It's never been an issue. I don't openly tell people I practice witchcraft. I do openly tell people I'm pagan and that I have pagan beliefs. The witchcraft part doesn't really come up, and only a couple people have been smart enough to pick up on the fact that I even practice without me even having to tell them, which was pretty cool. But that part I don't discuss. Most people don't have enough information or knowledge about it to really form, in my opinion, a correct view of what that really is. You know, people, as soon as they hear that word, they think, you know, Satanism or something evil, or you know how it goes. So I don't really talk about that part of my practice. But if people ask me, at first I wouldn't talk about it because I was still in a closet. In the first year or two, I didn't really, you know, tell anyone about it. I just told people, you know, I'm spiritual in my own way, you know, whatever. But now if people ask me about what my beliefs are, or what my faith is, or what my religion is, I go ahead and tell them. And I've never had to hide, like really hide who I am. Like right now I'm, you know, at work as I'm filming this, so thankfully I've always had jobs where I don't really have to hide that part of myself. And I couldn't imagine being forced to hide something so, you know, so close to you and so much a part of you. I just couldn't imagine having to do that. And I know we have a couple people on our channel that, or, you know, 2 people I think on our channel that, you know, they just can't discuss it at work. You know, mixing work and religion just isn't an option. And I totally get that, because there's some professions where you just can't. Like, you know, you can't, especially, you know, it also depends on if you live in a small town or, you know, where everyone knows you. I live in Fort Lauderdale, Miami metropolitan area. It's a huge crowded area. It's not like I live in a small town where everyone knows me. Like, nobody knows me. I've been here for, you know, since I was 8 years old, and nobody knows me, which is good. I remember visiting my dad in Minnesota, and he lived in a town of like 500 people, and like everyone knew him and his business. I couldn't do it. Anyways, so when it comes to paganism or my practice or my beliefs in the workplace, I've never really had much of a problem with it. Actually, the biggest problem I've had when it comes to the workplace is my food choices and being vegetarian or being vegan, because I know this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I find a very strong connection between veganism and paganism. As pagans, we're, you know, to honor the earth and its inhabitants and everything on it, and I just can't see, you know, eating an animal and something that's also, you know, a fellow earthling and someone who inhabits the earth with me and a sentient being who has feelings and things like that, and I just can't see doing it, and I think it ties in with paganism. And a lot of people disagree with me on that. That's a whole nother video, but that's what I've had the most problems with at work. I remember one year, about 5 or 6 years ago at an office I worked at, where I had an issue with, you know, they were giving out to everyone, and this was like 500 people. They were giving everyone free turkeys or hams, and you got to pick. And, you know, me and probably 2 or 3 other people were not cool with this because we were vegan at the time. I'm not vegan anymore. I'm vegetarian right now. I'm trying to move back into being vegan, but that's, like I said, has nothing to do with this video. But that's the problem I had with them, was I was like, look, I don't eat dead animals. Is there something else you can provide to me? I mean, I know it's not required. They were just giving them out which made me sick to begin with, but whatever. And, you know, it was really hard. I had to fight really hard to get my employer to actually provide something to me and the 3 or 4 other people who were pretty pissed off about not being considered. And, you know, when I talked to the human resources lady, she's like, you know, it didn't even cross my mind. It didn't even cross my mind. I'm like, well, it probably should have, because there's a lot of people here that are vegetarian, and, you know, even though it goes against their beliefs, they're taking these free frozen turkeys and hams and whatever, you know, giving them to other people, whereas I don't believe in doing that at all. I don't want to contribute to that at all, and neither do a few of these other people, which were too afraid to speak up. They were all scared they were going to lose their job, and I'm like, fuck that, no, that's not fair, you know. So I spoke up, and we got, you know, gift cards to the grocery store for the same value as, like, the turkey was or whatever, but I had to, like, fight for that, and that's pretty much the only problem I've had with when it comes to the workplace is my diet, my food choices. Not religion and not my spirituality, which is kind of strange. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would rather have the opposite problem, but anyways, I hope you guys have had a great week, and I hope you all found this helpful, and I'll talk to y'all later. Blessed be.